Mr. President, yesterday I came to the Senate floor to talk about how the government shutdown is affecting North Dakota ranchers and farmers, particularly my ranchers who were hit by last weekend's storm and lost a vast number of cattle and jeopardized their livelihood for years to come and aren't getting the services that they need from USDA and from the Farm Service Agency. But today, I want to talk about another devastating consequence of this shutdown, and that is the consequence of this shutdown on Indian country in my state, and undoubtedly Indian country all across this nation. In North Dakota, we have 5 Indian reservations, which are home to many Native American families. These are communities where economic development and many times employment has been trying to get a foothold, trying to catch up, and where many, many, many of my state's most vulnerable individuals live. We have heard and made much about the United States living up to its obligations, its contract obligations, its obligations to the entities that hold our debt. But we haven't talked about the United States living up to its treaty obligations to Indian tribes in this country. And this shutdown poses a serious, and I am not exaggerating, a serious threat to the basic services of the federal government provides to Native American families as part of its trust, its contract, its obligation to Native Americans and Native American nations. When I recently had a discussion with tribal chairs all across North Dakota, as I was hearing more and more of the kind of horror stories that you hear when all of a sudden weather is coming and food assistance is needed and fuel assistance is needed. And the stories that I heard, I want to share with this body today, Mr. President, because they are telling stories about how foolish and how dangerous this government shutdown is to many, many very, very vulnerable families, particularly vulnerable Native American families. And so just by way of introduction, most of the 5 tribes in North Dakota are direct service tribes, which means BIA itself performs critical functions to help Native American families. So BIA is the place where you go to get that assistance. With the shutdown, there are little or no BIA employees in each reservation to carry out this very, very important work. That means BIA's general assistance programs are no longer able to serve. For example, the 600 families on the Turtle Mountain Reservation who would otherwise receive an average of $97 per person to meet essential needs of food, shelter, and utilities. And I will tell you, the food banks and the food pantries are overrun. It is not an exaggeration to say that this shutdown has caused people in the Turtle Mountain Reservation to go hungry. At the Spirit Lake Nation, something that we've heard a lot about in the last year, where social services are stretched to the max, where we have problems in even a fully funded government. Today, the vast majority of BIA child social service agencies have stopped, leaving children stuck in limbo in the court system, waiting for someone to find them a safe and decent home. Just some examples, Mr. President. A woman wishing to report a sexual abuse of her son has been attempting to contact Child Protective Services for over a week now. When she went to the office, the doors were shut and the 24-hour on-call person didn't answer the phone. At the same time, BIA law enforcement is limited. And there's a lot of acreage out there that they have to cover, is limited to 1 officer per shift. They are patrolling 252,000 acres with 1 officer. At the Sisseton and Wapton Reservation, almost 40% of the tribe's ongoing budget consists of federal funds. The tribe is preparing to furlough more than 200 employees. Right now, the tribe is able to pay them out of carryover funds, but unless the government reopens soon, it won't be able to afford to pay these employees, and they'll be furloughed. In a couple examples of great tragedy, the Sisseton and Wapton community recently lost a 3-month-old baby, and because of the shutdown, the mother has been turned away for burial assistance for her child. Gerald Thompson, elder at the Siston Wapton, and a Vietnam vet. And I know on the floor with me is our senator from South Dakota, and he can attest to the great number of Native American who serve our military in a much higher rate than almost any other group. And Vietnam vets, proud Vietnam vets, he receives a small federal stipend, which is not even enough to cover the basic essentials. All of that's no longer available because of the shutdown. His wife is suffering from diabetes and stage 3 kidney disease. He worries about not being able to afford the gas to drive her to Fargo once a week, and he wonders how he is going to buy propane and heat for his family and his home. At Indian Health Service, healthcare workers such as those at Standing Rock recognize people still need medical attention, and so they're still coming to work. No promise of a paycheck, and probably some people would argue here doing so illegally. The Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation, which is at the epicenter of our oil and gas development in the Bakken oil shale in North Dakota, will see that development slowed. You know, there's always competition, Mr. President, for rigs in North Dakota. Where are those going to move? And everybody's waiting for the rig to show up and begin to drill their wells. The tribes have had a tremendous opportunity not only to develop the resource that will help them economically, but to develop this resource which is moving us in the right direction for energy independence. But because of the shutdown, MHA Nation is losing a substantial amount of federal oil and gas revenue. Right now, the tribes aren't able to get energy development agreements. They can't get drilling permits approved or have environmental impact assessments completed because BLM and EPA are shut down and not available. Those rigs will move someplace else. The tribes has hundreds of drilling permits waiting approval, and this is only going to delay them further. Situation is also dire in urban Indian communities. UTEC, United Tribes, is one of several tribal colleges that serves over 600 students trying to better themselves, and another 300 children that attend their K through 8 elementary school on the college campus. But because of that shutdown, they're reducing those education services and those to both their students, the college students, and to the children who live on that facility. You know, the list goes on and on and on, and it will only get worse. And if we continue to not address this problem, we are turning our back on these very real needs, but I think also importantly, turning our back on an obligation that this country undertook when they signed treaties with the tribal people of my state. All across North Dakota, families, workers, children, people who are disabled are losing access to services and assistance and are losing their paycheck. Why? Why is this happening? Because Congress, arguably the greatest body ever envisioned, the greatest democratic body ever envisioned, is bickering and plagued with inaction. House Republicans continue, I think, to bring up individual bills that only address the issues of the day and programs that have only been written about in programs. Whenever there is a headline, we can fund that because we want to say we're responding to those needs. Well, I think I need a headline for our Native American families who are in dire straits and for the Bureau of Indian Education as well as BIA. So I ask, what about Native American families who aren't able to get critical social services to afford food or housing because BIA is closed during the shutdown? Where's the bill for them? And also equally important, where's the public safety for them? Where's the public safety for those tribal members? What about the ranchers who lost a huge percentage of their herd, not only in my state in the southwest corner, but also all across West River in South Dakota, who can't get assistance from the Department of Agriculture? Where's the bill for them? What about our young farmers who are trying to build the farms of tomorrow and feed our country, who aren't able to receive their income checks because Farm Service Agency is shut? They can't even get their money. So where's the bill for them? And what about North Dakotans trying to start small business or get a home mortgage and aren't able to access those federal programs? Where's the bill for them? It is just time that we stop this. It is time that we respond to the very real hurt in America, the very problems. You know, you hear a lot about who's winning and who's losing politically. You know what? That is a sad day when that is the deliberation that we have, because it is the American people that we are here to serve. It is the American people that we have an obligation to, and we need to end this impasse, and we need to open up the government. My people in Indian country in North Dakota need and want and believe that they've earned that respect and earned that commitment to their treaty rights. Thank you so much, Mr. President. I yield the floor.